Okay, again, so this is the first time we are doing here the live streaming on YouTube, and this is the first fireside chat. So we are very happy to have Professor Takeo Kanade from Carnegie Mellon University. And so I will have a little introduction about the AI and UCF initiative in AI and a little background to set the context. Then we will have people can get some pizza and then come back and have question answering with Professor Kanade. So this is the age of AI, as you know, that there's an AI revolution happening and it's transforming the future, fundamentally shaping every aspect of our lives. Um, it's driving advancement across all sciences. Last year, there were 2 Nobel Prizes in AI, chemistry and physics, which is pretty amazing and shocking that AI is going to affect all sciences. And some estimate AI will have much bigger impact than what industrial revolution had. So this is going to really impact everybody. So in particular, AI is challenging universities what to teach and how to teach and what to research and how to do research because lots of disruption happening. So, and AI is moving very fast. Just last 2 months, as you guys heard, there was 500 billion investment in AI announcement by the White House. There was a AI Action Summit in Paris where all the head of states attended. And then there was a big disruption from China, DeepSeek R1 from China, at the AI aha moment. That, the AI start thinking itself and found something new with a reason, which is impressive. And then there was in Switzerland, there was a summit, and the Anthropic CEO claimed that in 2 years, AI will be able to do all the tasks humans are doing and maybe even better. Okay, so it's a big claim. So, and South Korea is going to build this world's largest AI data center. So now AI started, the AI movement started what is called ImageNet movement, which is a computer vision problem, 1,000 classes of objects, so you want to recognize that. And computer vision is the most important area of AI. And we are very happy that at UCF, we have very strong computer vision groups, Center for Research in Computer Vision. It's a very small, we have only 3 faculty, myself and other 2 faculty, Chen Chen and Yogesh Awad, they are here. But we have a large group of PhD students, postdocs and assistant faculty and civil visitors. So UCF Computer Vision ranked top 8 in the US, so we are very happy. And compared to other universities in the states of Florida, these are the results. So also one thing is happening, which is very big, that the CVPR is the conference, which is a computer vision conference among all sciences, all the publication venues, that has a second most impact, which is really shocking, right? So Nature and CVPR. And this tells you how important computer vision is in. And we are very happy that we are very active in publishing CVPR papers. Like last year, we had 19 papers from this year, which we were very happy about it. So now, as I said, that the AI revolution started the ImageNet, and that was the data set of images, but the data set for the video is UCF 101. So this is our data set. These are the actions from YouTube. And this is the benchmark for how the AI is progressing. This is from the Stanford University Index. They every year they publish that how our algorithm are doing on the UCF 101. So many people told me they know UCF from UCF 101 data sets, which we are very happy about that. And we got this award about this data set. Now we also have UCF CRCV channel on YouTube. Actually, we are live streaming this Fireside chat, and we have about 25,000 subscribers. We put all our courses, dissertations, and all those things. And many people learn computer vision from our CRCV channel. So of course, this is the thing my students brag about. So, about the citations and the UCF has, other university in Florida has, 15, um, 4 faculty and 3 faculty, the 100,000 citation or more, and we need to get hiring more people in AI. We can get more faculty to have these many citations. We also have Dr. Chen, who is the second most ISH index in the EC and CS department. And so he just got promoted to SS professor, very young, really happy about it. And he has done work in the medical ChatGPT. And Dr. Yogesh Rawat, he is getting this award for the Reaching for a Star Award this year. And we have Masters of Science in Computer Vision. UCF is only public university offering this degree, and we have graduated lots of students, and they are doing pretty well. We also do this NSF REU research experiment undergraduates. We have been running this for many years, and these were the students. Every year, 10 students come to UCF, spend 10 weeks from all over the country, and they learn how to do research. We also have this program from NSF. We call it Strong AI for $2.5 million grant. So this is the program what we recruit these students from community colleges. They come as a STEM major, but they find it difficult to continue their work because their standards low and they're not prepared. So we recruit these students and assign them mentors so that they can become successful. And these are the students we have this year, about 14 students. And actually later today in the evening, we'll have banquet with them, and Professor Kanade will be the chief guest, where every student will talk about their background and what they're doing. So we're happy to help out in this. Now, given this context of computer vision, my idea was to scale up this excellence computer vision to other areas of AI and robotics, natural language processing, machine learning, speech, and all those things. And this is the famous equation from UCF, which says if you take the excellence, multiply with scale, then the biggest impact. So that's the idea started with this, and we have this AI initiative, which is supported by 6 colleges, and we have already hired 13 faculties, 10 faculty are on board here, and some of them are here actually in different colleges, College of Medicine, Business, Sciences, and the College of Engineering, Computer Science, and so on. And then 3-4 faculty they have accepted, they're going to start in the fall. So, and with that, just in 2 years, we have actually 30 new PhD students working with AI with these faculty we have hired, so we are very happy about it. With that background, so we will now break for a little bit to get the pizza quickly, then we'll start the chat with the Professor Kanade. Now we'll start talking to Professor Kanade. And so Professor Kanade did the PhD thesis in 1973 from Kyoto University. And this was the first thesis on the face recognition using computers. And that was a long time ago, as you see, 73. And that 1970, this was in Osaka World Expo. They were able to recognize these 1,000 face images, which was pretty impressive. So then the The other notable contribution from Professor Kanade is this self-driving car, NavLab. And this was a program started from DARPA for many, many years. And CMU, of course, was a leader in that. And this is the actual car they drove from Las Vegas to LA. And this was a big milestone, the research, the convergence of computer vision, robotics, control, and all those things. So this was pretty pioneer work. And after this demonstrations, then Professor Kanade and his team actually were invited to Jay Leno show. So some of you remember Jay Leno and his very popular Tonight Show, and this is a picture from there. The other achievement is this work. Now, how do we get the audio on? About the Super Bowl? Hey, Melody, can you come? How do I start the audio? So Super Bowl, they put these cameras and they were doing this live, and this was pretty impressive.
Now, during today's coverage of Super Bowl 35, CBS Sports will introduce a new technology called iVision. It provides panoramic coverage similar to the special effects in the hit movie The Matrix. Here at the Super Bowl, 30 robotic cameras have been mounted on the scoreboard and all along the upper deck at intervals of 7 degrees. Each camera feeds into one of the 30 specially designed digital recording devices. The images are then computer calibrated to instantaneously show any spot on the playing field from all angles within the camera's 220-degree range. Professor Takeo Kanade of Carnegie Mellon with designing the software that blends 30 cameras into one dynamic panorama.
This is a gigantic robotic system. You have to have perfect idea of the direction, position of the cameras, and the relationship of the amount of zoom, amount of focus to the command that you give from the computer. And that is one of the hardest jobs.
This player is out, takes the pass, cuts back inside, across the 40 to about the 41-yard line.
All right, here it is. This is an example during the warm-ups, taken just a moment ago. The pass from Banks to Davis, and look at the way it can whip around. We're all looking forward to it. And by the way, it can be used in instant replay situations in the case of a challenge.
We will talk from time to time tonight about iVision. If you're wondering what it is, this is what it looks like.
You got a pass rush, quarterback, he drops back. Look, he sees a big lane. Look at that big lane, so he steps up into it. What always makes it easy for a quarterback is to have a clean line of sight. Watch Trent Dilfer, nice look off, looks to his left, and nobody in front of him. Look at that nice lane. He can see the receiver down the field. And what a throw.
Brian Billick looking to his offense to put a nail in the coffin right here from the 3-yard line. Lewis and Gash in the back.
Okay, so I think to start with, Takeo, I want to go, back like you did your PhD in 73 in Kyoto. And after that, you were invited to CMU. And it was supposed to be for 1 year, an invitation of Raj Reddy. And then, but you stayed, for a long time. And maybe take us through that, like, how was your experience? Why did you decide to stay in the US, and how this whole thing started?
Well, before I start, I'm really glad I'm here. I was here in fact in this room more than 3 or 4 times. I remember I gave a talk. So let me do it again. I'm very glad to be here before answering robot questions. I've been here actually several times, and I even remember I gave an invited talks in this room And when I come back here, when I heard Professor Shah's presentation of where UCF's computer vision group and AI in general is really vibrating. And that's, by the way, exactly the reason I came to Carnegie Mellon. When I visited Carnegie Mellon in 1977, at that time, computer science in Japan we were doing batch processing. Probably younger people even don't know what the batch processing is. You actually submit a deck of paper, IBM cards, which is this big, to computer center, and you wait sometime even a week before a result come back with only one line command error, and even it doesn't compile the program. That's how we were doing the research over there. And then when I came Carnegie Mellon, I noticed that time sharing at the time, PDP-10 is available all the time, and even as a visitor, I was given terminal to be used at home. And at that time, the connection was on the 50 board, meaning you have about 5 to 10 characters per second. That's how the speed of the display is. You may not realize what it's like to work on such a computing, but yet I could do those things. And I thought that, wow, gee, this environment is such a vibrant, and also people like Herb Simon, who's a Nobel Prize laureate, is around in computer room, and we could even talk to him. So I said, well, gee, I could do maybe at least 5 times more research here. And that vibrant thing, which I see the same thing here with Professor Shah's explanation. I think that's environment, by the way, is really the key of good research.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned Herb Simon got Nobel Prize, and Alan Newell was pioneer of AI, both of them. Now, at that time, the AI research had a very different flavor, right? There was symbolic AI and different things. And around that time, you started, the first work you did at CMU was on what topic? Can you share with us what was the first thing you did?
I tend to work on many things. And as soon as I came to Carnegie Mellon in 1980 as a regular faculty, I started a few things. One is, even though I'm not a mechanical engineer, I worked for developing what is called a direct drive arm manipulator that doesn't use gears. Direct drive means the motor is put in the joint, and without gear or belt or connected rod, it actually moves. So that means zero friction. And so it actually can generate much faster movement, more precise force control. And also one of the points that I also told is that around that time, the gears actually is a very bad thing. So that actually consumes even up to 40% of the torque that motor generate transmitted to actual motion. Whereas this thing, so that friction is very difficult to model. And then by removing that, and then, oh, by the way, people try to model that friction by very complicated equations and this and that. So my colleague, Professor Asada, and myself began to work on direct drive and saying, well, simplest thing to do is don't use it rather than modeling the hard thing. Yeah? And so our slogan was, this Rather than doing that, you can actually generate dynamic equations of how this manipulator should move, because it's a mechanical thing. It's follows the Newton-Euler equations. So I used to say, this is the first robot that actually works as Mr. Newton predicted. And so we actually compute the dynamics motion with 500 hertz every time. And in order to do that, we even developed our own hardware. At that time, there's no computer to do that 500 hertz computation of 60 degrees of freedom manipulator. So that I was doing manipulator. And then I also started working on a couple of things. One is actually maybe the one that made the best success is what is known today, Lucas Kanade algorithm that tracks the motion in the image, which I'm very proud to be used everywhere in any software today, even today, for dealing with video processing. And by the way, that I have a story of this. Well, maybe I should do it later.
Yeah, so I think that, Lucas Kanade, we teach this in the computer vision courses. That's a fundamental contribution. So related to, I think, your interest in different areas and whatever you contributed to the field. I remember, late Tom Hong, famous UICC professor, had once introduced you, said, well, Takeo has done lots of things. And that's one, qualification. Other thing is that all of his things really work. So which is, in those time, we used to publish papers and, we can get publication, but actual things working, was difficult and in real situations. So Lucas Kanade was one of the good example. Now, around that time, 1980, was this in computer vision, there was this whole change from the image processing, which Rosenfeld and these classical signal processing researchers used to do. Then David Marr came in at MIT. He started this computational approach for computer vision. And then you and others have more like approaches which really work and solve the real problems. And then I think a few years after that or something around that time, Jeff Hinton also spent time at CMU for a short period. So can you, give us like your perspective now that how these different, phases of computer vision or AI research have gone through from signal processing, image processing, symbolic AI. Then you have this more approach and also the more, like the optimization, variational calculus, and that's where the Horn and Shunk optical flow algorithm started, but you showed that you actually don't need all those complicated partial differential equations. You can do very intuitively and it works better than that. And then there was this thing about the neural network. And I remember that one of your highest cited paper is on face detection using neural network. So, give us some, perspective on this. Like,
To me, actually, people tend to really try to differentiate various approaches. But to me, the essence of computer vision, or in that sense, essence of intelligence is really how to take advantage of the redundancy or constraints the real world has on it. See, if the pictures are taken in real world under with the real world events, with the real world physical device called camera, and so images not arbitrary, and it has constraints. It's a redundancy. Okay? It follows a rule all the way from you might call semantic rules that we have a certain object and we human behave in a certain way. That's the constraints. And then also the images are taken with cameras, which follows the physical rule. Light goes always straight, and therefore things behind body is not visible by camera, and all those constraints exist. And certain shape information is reflected by the distribution of brightness. So surface orientation and the relationship between surface orientation and illumination and surface property of whether it's a mirror, whether it's a highly reflective surface or a Lambertian benign surface and so forth, right? So how to turn that into a computer program to take advantage of those constraints and redundancy to make sense out of images. That's what computer vision or even intelligence is all about. Now, so in incorporating that, one way is, well, human must be doing something well, so there must be some secret in it, and so forth. So David Marr tend to go that way. And I might be a little more engineering oriented and more physics oriented and say that, well, there must be some more physical rule, mathematical essence behind it. So I definitely, my approach is more that. And people like Jeff Hinton and so forth, sometimes say, well, there must be some certain function. It has a more general capability to represent those relationships. So he actually, at that time, he was always called Boltzmann machine. That actually has a certain exponential function of minus, and this part is the Gaussian equation, A sigma inverse A T form. Okay? And so I think that's to me, that's the difference. Now, and there's a big thing between around that time, there was more descriptive. So every tries to do a more descriptive way. And argument at that time, it's interestingly, by the way, is famous people like criticizer, critique of AI. Most famous one is Herbert Dreyfus, was saying computer program AI will never be able to beat a human in chess or any intelligent game. Reason, he said, human actually moves, select the most move, unconscious, conscious. Computer doesn't have. Computer is explicit conscious decision, whereas human has a sixth sense, and we unconsciously comes up a good idea. That's the reason that computer will never be able to beat human. Now, of course, we know that was not the case by now. By the way, I'm most proud that if I brag myself a little bit, in 1967, when I first heard the word artificial intelligence in my third year engineering class, I was instantaneously convinced that this will be smarter than human, no question whatsoever. And then at that time, when I told that to even my professor, who is a specialist of AI at that time, told me, oh, Kanade, no, that's not possible. And I was arguing, and I even wrote that in my book, that it's possible. And then computer program will beat Go and so forth. So the book that I wrote in 1995, it's explicitly said that. So anyway, so that's to me, that's how things are going. And then the conscious thing is, by the way, very interesting. Most recently, just a few days ago in Space City, there was a interesting meeting sponsored by Amazon, and a person gave a talk, which I did not agree, but her argument is completely opposite to Dreyfus. It was a very interesting. She said, well, computer is now making a decision without knowing how it's doing. She is referring to deep learning method. Indeed, that may be the case because it's more end-to-end system, and we may analyze what's it doing, but maybe we don't know. Wow. So she said the biggest difference between computer and thing is human has consciousness. Now it's turned around. It's very interesting. And I personally don't agree with that. But anyway, so I think that's a matter of how the tools is doing things. And I think that those interpretations doesn't have that much significant value.
Mhm. So on this, I think deep learning revolution. So when I was a graduate student, most of the AI computer vision community, including, didn't believe in neural network. They say it's a black box. It's not going to work. Just don't waste time. It's a dirty work. Even though, I mean, you did this paper on face detection. So two questions. So one is that what you did neural network on face detection uh, was very different than what we are doing now in deep learning. Second thing is that did you expect that deep learning with this all the data and all this thing will become so successful that it will take over? Because that's a big reflection point.
I think yes and no. I think I was, in one sense, correct in a small way, that I view neural net is nothing but computational framework. Here's an X, and then you do convolution, and the result of that is some nonlinear transform. Then you get the second set of the value. And then those are again convoluted, with lots of them, and then second, third set. So it's a sequence. And then, by the way, that particular form of computational box, because it's a form, right? You can write it equation, what it means, right? Now, one layer is called perceptron. Rosenblatt, 1965, I think he defined it. So that is Fx equal nothing but summation of AI times xi. That's it. That's one layer. Okay. Then two layer comes in, which is around 80, toward mid 80 to and amazingly, only by adding one more layer makes a big difference. And the secret is this nonlinear function. So put f and then convolute over the x, because there are many, it's a convolution. You can think of it a matrix, okay? And then put the sigma, the sigmoid function. And then the result is a vector, and then do another. Now, two sets, amazingly, did everything. And it got the same type as was last time. And people thought that it would solve everything. And I got that, so the two layer thing. And then at that time, people thought it will solve everything. And that's a big boom. Okay? And so in that sense, I thought this is one way of representing function fx by it's, in one sense, it's the same as, okay, I believe fx must be linear function, right? Now, if the also problem is defined answer y equal fx, y and relation x is that, then that's it. And by uh, obtaining the optimal weights AI, then you can solve the problem, right? But many problems are not linear. So then traditionally you said, oh, it's not linear, maybe second order. So I say, well, it may be A1 x squared plus A2 x plus A3. Well, that's one form of x, but that limits the shape of the function that you can represent, right? So in that sense, by today's the deep one is really some functional, in other words, the form of function, which you hope represent the relationship that you want between x and y. And it's a complicated, not complicated, complex enough function definition. Therefore, by choosing the right set of parameters, million, or these days more than million,
Billion.
yeah, billion, you have appropriate function. Okay? Now, one thing I was correct was it's nothing but that. I did not realize, and afterward I thought, gee, isn't it all trivial that if you make 2, 3, 4, 5, then functions that you can represent becomes bigger and bigger, and that function, that set has likely include that function that you want to have. And then as an afterthought, that is all deep learning is doing, but geez, that's a problem. I was not clever enough to think that way. Yeah. So at that time, it was a nice computational box, and I use it. But that's it. I could not think of going the next step. How about 3? Lukun got 5 and then got amazing result. Yeah. And then once you get 5 and then, okay, 10, 100. And then, these days, not just 100, right? So I always say numerosity counts. And that's sometimes reality. Yeah.
Yeah, so now one question, go ahead, yeah.
My question is also to take you in the direction of language, right? So it seems pretty clear that language has some impact on the building of these internal representations. So do you have a perspective on that? Because I know you yourself, haven't actually dabbled too much in language, but you must, as a smart individual, you must think about language.
Yeah, again, I myself didn't work on language as much, but again, see, when we were doing everything by symbolic and then writing our own code, yeah. So you should realize that. By the way, I'm a little bit off from your question, but maybe I should tell it. Recently at this meeting, I was approached by a young person, and he said, "Oh, Professor Kanade, you actually demonstrated the first autonomous driving across the United States." And yes, I did. Did you write the program line by line? What do you mean? So to him these days, writing code is not like writing line by line. Apparently, you just get the various
ChatGPT.
module and put together, and that's it. And then he did not realize that, yes, we wrote the program in line by line saying that if you have obstacle in your left, turn your, wheel to right. And if the speed is this much, then the amount of the angle to correct must follow this function and so forth. So everything that we wrote, okay, even the outdoor recognition program that we wrote, my student wrote back in early 80s, outdoor scene analysis. If you see a square pattern in the picture. Good thing to check whether there's another similar size box near it, above and so forth, and check the size difference. And if the size goes smaller this way, then the orientation of that should be this and that. If you have a gray region of that, then that should be a concrete, and therefore most likely above it, there will be a blue color region, which you should call it, you should call sky, and that's, we wrote everything like that. Huh? So in that sense, the language and so forth may be the same thing, but I think probably around that time, people thought language, speech, vision, different mode and different type of research. And we even didn't talk that much. And so each other. That's interesting. Today, it's in as you see, it's the same thing, right? It's this gigantic function. And the representation of embedding words in this high dimensional space and so forth. And that's again, concept was there, like quantum this vectorization. It's the same thing as embedding, but people did not get that, go beyond that. So in that sense, I think the secret of good research is this: really think of what you're doing, and then if you actually go next step, if you expand this idea more, what does that mean? I think that's probably what we should have done, and the people who did it were more successful. Whereas you confine your thinking of the current problem and trying to solve it. Rather than that, what does it mean? What does this tool is doing? What this problem? What's the solution? What does that really mean? So if you have that habit, then maybe you should be able to got the better result. And so that's my confession of the failure of my research.
Yeah, so I do have lots of questions, but let's ask more questions from audience. Yes, go ahead. Please
Actually,
stand up. Yeah.
the question, probably the biggest question I have today is like with something related to what Dr. Lobo asked already. So like, if you look at the recent state of the art methods in many areas, right? So essentially, like we see that if you take the LLMs which are trained primarily on like language data, it's 99% language data. And then at the end, they add a small amount of vision data, it's like 1% vision data. And then it's able to achieve state of the art performance on many tasks in even like, like robotic manipulation and so on, which is a pretty visual and like spatial temporal reasoning kind of task. So like maybe like is it because ultimately most of the tasks that you're trying to solve in vision are still mostly about just general reasoning and then language capabilities, like you said that even autonomous driving can be represented as a sort of line by line program. So is that actually true for most of the vision? Like there is like it's basically just regular reasoning and language, or is it like is there still something like unique to the vision modality in terms of reasoning, or like is it just like we can just convert everything into language?
Yeah, so what he's asking that do you really need, I mean, in the past, as you mentioned, all these fields were working in silos. And so we say, in order to solve vision problem, you have an image, you put constraint, and we do that. But now the combining this language, it's really helping a lot. So in order to move forward, like, to solve this self-driving car problem, even though you started a long time ago, but still we don't have self-driving cars, right? So what is the, future? Like, do you see that this large language models or visual language models are the way to move forward? Or can we just rely on only these different modalities, not necessarily language?
Well, that's a difficult question. I wish I know the good answer. The only thing I would, my preference is this. Maybe I'm not answering your question directly. I think if you look at the history of, say, internet in the beginning was basically symbol words. And I think the impact of internet became multiplied more than just 10 or 100, maybe 100 or 1,000. Once it began to incorporate the physical object in it, people call it IO. I think my feeling is today's AI is still, in that sense, somewhat similar to this first stage of internet. And indeed, people realize that the same thing. So these days, as you may know, slogan is physical AI, and that makes sense. And indeed, well, I remember before IoT came, I think some data manager, he wrote a note, which I think is very far-looking concept. He actually said in single sentence, internet goes physical. So maybe the same thing is here, happening here. AI goes physical. Why? I think we are living in real physical world. So we have to deal with it. Everything comes from physical world, except certain things that we do, just our virtual, this and that. Even virtual thing, I think it's based on our own experience with the physical world. We are physical entity. Yeah. The way I usually say it, the human is a physical object. We need real food. We cannot live with bits. See, so, all right. So that means, I think, the physical thing. And then that actually gives a far more difficult problem, because in most applications that we see today in AI, error doesn't cost too much. Certain GPT generate the wrong answer. Well, people criticize, but that's not the end of the world. But autonomous driving, well, if it fails, that's the end of your life. And you cannot say, okay, I like to things move this way in order for my program works better. No, you cannot. It just follow very strict rule of physics, as well as very strict rule of timing. You cannot change timing of real world. I think so that so AI is as a physical real world object. I think maybe that's the real challenge, and then I know people working on it, and then I see more recent robotics seems to be actually trying to address that problem.
So one, I think, common question for public is: do we need to worry about AI? AI will take over, and there was, as you know, there was the effort. Lots of scientists signed a petition that we should have a pause on that because we cannot control. So what are your thoughts on that?
I actually on the side of relative optimism. So even the small problem like face recognition, I noticed that some people argue that face recognition need to be banned. I can't believe it. I think by the way, we human does face recognition every day, and we have certainly bias and so forth. So all the criticism are the two types of criticism. One is technical. AI doesn't do this, do it incorrect, has a bias, this and that. Those are technical questions. And I think as an engineer, as a scientist, I have a strong belief we can solve it. No problem. The second set of the question, which is hard, and then I think is the value question. Should we ask AI to answer the question of better life? And some people say, oh, well, AI should not answer that question. I think that's a value question. And then I believe that we should, if you want, you can ask. Should I ask the value question to Professor Shah about the good life, I may ask because I trust him, but I may not ask the same question to somebody who I may not, I don't trust. Well, that's a value question. So those two are different. And also the third one is like um, you know, whether, okay, so the bottom line is AI is in that sense as a tool is to me by definition it's a virtue. And of course it has a power which is unprecedented to make things, make wrong things, make to make it easier to do wrong things. For example, if you try to steal somebody else's writing, plagiarism, in the past that it may be difficult, meaning that number one, you have to find a good literature which matches with what you want, number one. And also, you need a little smartness to copy it, but not exact copy, so that it's not easy to detect whether it's a copy of somebody else's writing. Yeah? Now GPT Chat GPT makes it easier to do that without by hiding reasonably well where it comes from. So in that sense, it makes it easier. But is that a problem of the program? I think it's a problem of you who does that. So I think fundamentally, I think we should not confuse the two problems, two issues.
That's right. Go ahead, Amrit. Yeah.
Thank you for the discussion. So my question is little general. Like Professor Shah mentioned that you have worked on a lot of things and all of them works really well. So what was your mechanism, decision-making mechanism behind selecting those projects? Like, because you could have worked on something else also, which would not lead to any impact. And that is a dilemma as a junior faculty I face almost on daily basis. Like, what problem should I invest my time in such that there is an impact, or because there is a very slippery slope into just ended up writing next paper, getting it accepted, and then nobody ends up reading that paper.
I think my way of saying it is good research has a good story. Can you make a story of how your research will change the world? And then that change make different as a different form. Easiest one is if I succeed with this function, with this device, with this system, with this theory, then such and such things will become easier, will become better, people like it, and so forth. So that's easier. And more fundamental thing is that even the theorists that you're working on, I think good theorist really knows they're not just working to manipulating equations. I think they know by establishing this theorem, such a new sort of a scheme or space of mathematical system will appear. So I think good people seems to be able to do that. And you need to keep asking that while you're doing it. So say, oh, if I succeed this will, or it seems that I succeeded. What does that mean? If I can succeed this, then why not more? Or it appears that I solved this problem, but let's see, was it really a problem? You have to keep asking that. So if you can do that, then good one. That's why when we hear good research presentation, we are instantaneously convinced. And I think you should realize that when you hear a good talk, you are not, most likely, you're not necessarily impressed by the result. I think you're impressed with the problem. I like this solution. Yeah. And you're excited to see the solution. And I usually say it, you're not listening to the talk. You yourself is trying to solve it. See whether my solution is the same as this guy's solution. Does he do better? Yes. And that's if you can come up with such a problem, you will be successful. And by the way, that's another secret of getting research fund from your sponsor. I think if I brag, Takeo Kanade is known to be really good at getting funding. Indeed, some people say, Takeo Kanade, what does it mean? Kanade means, Kanade's kana means in Japanese, gold, money. De means produce, yield. Takeo's take of Takeo means samurai, warrior. Huh? O means brave. And then Professor Ed Reisman, who's our colleague, said, oh, Takeo, no wonder you're good at this, because your name means money yielding brave samurai. So I usually say this. So in order to get the good research fund, the problem is not to try to, or not, I shouldn't say not. The most important thing is to get the sponsor to want to solve that problem. In other, rather than, oh, can you do a good job? Rather than that, well, that's my problem. I want you to solve it, or I would like to solve it. Let's see whether you and I, which one does better job. If you can get him feel that way, you're all set. You can even, the other side want to pay you. No? And then you say, no, I don't need that much. So it's, position is turn around. That's a secret. So the research, the same, I think that's the same thing.
So I think that's a very good advice to junior faculty. But what is the advice you have for the graduate students? What they should, do.
I
work
think,
on,
okay,
yeah.
I have to tell you that even though I pretend as if I'm always successful, and when I was a student, PhD student, I really had a problem. Really. I have to say that I was a good student as academic student. I was pretty good. In the US, you may say all A, all S students. I was like that. And somehow I thought I could do well in PhD. So I read the paper and I said, well, that's easy. I should do something better. And then I tried to work on it. And the result is not good. So, okay, maybe this is not a good one. The next one. And I kept doing it. Many topics, many papers. Never successful. And successful to the point that I liked it. So I was almost verge of depression. And at that time, one of my professors told me, Kanade, I think you're trying to sort of come up with a reason that has, a beautiful, mathematical, fundamental, or this and that. Well, those are good things, but that's not a goal. You cannot have set a goal to be fundamental research. That's a result, yeah, or beautiful research. So I think he said, solve the real world problem. And that's how I started face recognition. And as soon as I did it, I began to have no problem. And I got the same advice from Professor Alan Newell, who is really respected professor at Carnegie Mellon. He really said, good research must respond to real world problems. So I think, and then that's also, by the way, is easier, has likely success. Why? Because if the solution of your problem has some value, then no matter how you solve it, it has value. But if your goal is beautiful research, then see, that's a character of the research. Then it's very difficult to acquire it. Yeah.
So in your academic career, you had lots of good students, right? Nair, Zaleski, and Tamasi, and all those guys. So what are the qualities when you were recruiting students. The students walk into your room, office, and ask they want to work with you, and so on. So what are the advice you have?
see.
like
I think
the junior
beyond
faculty?
all of students, all of you, are smart and must be able to do good. And I noticed that good students seems to be able to stick to the problem. Energy. I think energy is maybe the one thing that good students somehow able to sustain. So you get one little bit good result and then it doesn't stop.
They should be persistent.
Yeah, persistent,
Yeah.
really. I
Mhm.
think the persistency
Yeah.
is a key,
Mhm.
you know.
And amount of hours, number of hours they should spend.
Yeah, not just the work. I mean, not the number of hours. I think I usually call it intelligent energy, intelligence energy. Just like a good athlete has body, energy, who can do a lot of things that continues. And continuously doesn't necessarily mean that um, long hours, maybe intensity. So with the big intensity, big density, can you sustain your thinking? I think that is a very important point. And then, of course, that one is supported by physical strength. And that is known, right? Because famous game players, Go players, and historically, they tend to be young. Why? Because, and then when you get older, they began to not so well. Not necessarily because in terms of brain, maybe getting better, but physical strength cannot support that activity. So I think everybody has a good chance.
Yeah, so we have a few more questions. Yeah, go ahead, please. Stand up.
Thanks for your talk. I want to know, like, right now we see that the industry is investing in like larger and larger foundation models, and they're competing against industry in like publications and everything. So how do you think as academia, which is like GPU poor, money poor, how can we compete against industry and like solve problems?
Well, let's see. I actually admire people who work in industry. I think academia people have a disadvantage in a sense that we can choose any problem we want. That sounds to be nice. I think probably living in a under constraint, like is actually good. Why? Because the area of investigation is focused. Okay? And quite often, good research, good activity comes from that. Can you focus? Can you limit the range of exploration? If you can solve world most difficult problem for applicable to everything, of course, that's a great accomplishment. That's almost impossible. Good research is always by limiting very cleverly, very nicely, in such a way that that limit actually makes the problem easier, more as well, and still has what I call story. Okay? The people who could do that would work. Have you noticed that there are papers which claims the most general theory of anything, and quite often you're not that impressed. Why? It's too general. We don't need it. I think the right people is somehow constrain the world problem the right size so that you can have very structured discovery, as well as that discovery is applicable to various things, because people see how his problem is helped by the theory, by the method, by the tools that you developed. Whereas if you have too general tool that solves that claims to solve everything, which usually not true, by the way. But even so, I think other people have a hard time to actually incorporate it because it's too general.
Couple of other questions, and yeah, go ahead.
Given the current trajectory of computer vision research, which often focuses on incremental improvements in existing architectures and integration of vision language models, do you see this leading to general artificial intelligence, or is there a need to revisit foundational principles of computer vision or novel groundbreaking methodologies?
Yeah, so he's saying that, these days, there is most of these, first is, there's lots of papers, right? Every day there are papers being put in. And the basic paradigm is very similar that, you have this deep learning, you have data, you have different, loss functions and so on. So he's saying, is that the right way to go?
Okay.
Or
Good point. I actually like to make a point about that.
Yeah.
This is somewhat joking problem. We academic people write a paper, right? And just like you said, people whose papers read, people want your paper. You want your paper to be read by other people. By the way, do you know what is the highest percentage of the number of readers of your paper? One, which is most likely you. That's about 99% of the paper has only one readers. Two, maybe 0.5%, 0.5%, three, 0.05%, and so forth. And I think the feature of the papers that are not read, I actually once told people, paper that start with a paper is unlikely to be read. Paper that starts with a problem is likely read. And the feature of the paper, which start with a paper, usually says start, abstract, or introduction. Recently, have you noticed? Have you ever read a paper that starts with recently? That's a very bad sign.
Yeah.
Recently, problem such and such is very popular. A did X, and then said, but is a problem. So B did Y, but. So C did Z, but, and keep going until maybe PQR. By then, I think readers are so confused. What does this guy want to solve? Yeah. And probably that's about the place where the readers stop reading. Whereas if you just like that, if people want to solve that problem, people read it. So I think in that sense, it's unfortunate today's world, today's computer vision field, it seems to be almost all paper says, I got this thing, so and so did this 62%, I got this 63%, and then mine is better by all of them by 1%. And I always tease my students and say, what does 1% mean? Does that really make any difference in real world? If it's 30, if it's 50 to 80, probably the 30 means a lot. If it's 10 to 40, does it really do anything different? Yeah, and so forth. So I think today it's a bad sign. I think probably sooner or later this will change. Sooner or later this will change. I hope.
Yeah, the last question.
Yes, yes. Basically, I have two things to say. One is just to extend what you have just said, that you said that a small difference might not be very of a high value in the real world, but apparently these like the steppings, these act as a stepping stones for something fundamental to appear. For example, that okay, DeepSeek came out recently, but there was a lot of work that was done in the research that led to the fundamental change, right? So, don't you think the stepping stones and these small increments are quite essential?
Yeah, what he's saying,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a little hearing
Yeah.
problem.
so he agrees with you that, incremental is, not the perfect way to go, but it said that, everything start with you take the first, step and you keep moving. So, and the fundamental research, the big research is built on the all other people have worked on different ideas. Mhm.
Yeah, I think I am not denying incremental. Research is always incremental. The point is your incremental, is that if that is representable only by 2% or 3% of improvement, then that meaning of that is ununderstandable to readers. That's why the paper is not read. Okay. If you have a good argument, not just when I say argument, by the way, it's not technique of writing. It's if you have a good reason why my research is actually attacking the critical point of this problem, and that's why I got this improvement. And then so, gee, that's a point we should attack. And then by attacking that one, you got the improvement. Then I agree, that's impressive. And you know, so you
Yeah, it depends on how you frame it and how you present and
yeah,
and
not
so on. It's not a
presenting.
focus
I
should
think
be-
your
Mm.
how you frame your research.
Yeah, yes.
What point are you solving? And then if you can say it, then I think that's good. If you cannot say it,
Mhm.
then probably you yourself don't know
Mhm.
what you're doing.
Mhm.
So I think that's I think that's a point.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, well, very good. Thank you very much. It was very nice.